Thank you, Chair, and colleagues. Well, this particular paper was, in fact, we call it work in progress yet. I have to make an apology to the chair of the WSD that sorry I was not able to complete it for the nice proceeding, you see. So it would have been nice to have the paper there. So please bear with me while I was presenting it. And in the first session, we have the keynote speaker was talking about accounting and accountancy, full of numbers. Well, I'm afraid we have two authors here. Myself is a development person, economist, if you like, can say, and Professor Selvanathan, he's an econometrician, so it's a good combination. And also we have been working both together over a period of time on climate change and issues. So we thought that let's see what we can do with our next project. The title, as the chair mentioned, was in fact a climate smart development. I mean, it's a bit what we call it catchy, or what people say. It's rather more, I would say, that adaptation from climate change, how to adapt. As you know, this is a major debate now. And we would like to see, for this kind of adaptation going, we need some sort of, modeling done to see if we can identify the victims of these climatic hazards or different hazards from the coastal region. The coastal region is our major focus. I'll tell you later why was that. But before that, just giving you a bit of idea about the outline of this paper, talking a little bit of introducing the study, then going to go to the study region, then to talk about the methodology. Methodology, in fact, in two parts. One was we have done a survey because the model we developed was, in fact, was tested with these micro level data. So we call it village census, and we'll talk about it more later. And briefly about the model. I'm not going to go in detail about this. And then give you some flavor of results, what we have been finding. And of course, with lots of numbers. I mean, I tried to keep it as low as possible, but still we have to bear with me on that, I suppose. And then concluding. Because it's a bit, to some people, it may be a bit new area, or some, we have got quite a bit of sort of knowledge about it, or hearing about it from media and other sources. So I thought that I better give you exact what we are doing in this particular study. The major aim of this study is to measure the socio-economic vulnerability of a frontline region of South Asia for making adaptation policy. More specifically, this study focuses on the following objective. I would like to, again, read out of this, because this is the core of our subject matter, to explore how to make the vulnerability measure proposed in the present study robust out of a primary survey in the Bay of Bengal coastal region, Measurement of vulnerability is essential for making adaptation policies of the coastal regions. I mean, as you know, that at this moment, the UN or IPCC, rather, under UNFCCC, they are going for two major sort of, policy areas in climate change. One is adaptation policies, the other one is mitigation policies. We are not going to mitigation areas. So, but they are going with huge macro level with regional modeling. So we find that while that is okay, but they are not suitable for all regions. So we need micro study. And there are many authors you would find that they would like to have some micro studies first to make some inputs to the macro policies. Just to give you a typical sort of climatic hazard sort in the region first. What is this? Yeah, this thing we have got here is this is the path, the direction of this cyclone called Moazzem that was hit the region in 2014, the latest one. So this is where it was developed and then went through it, and it was kind of either hitting this way. This is the area where it should hit, and here to that. So all of it, of this coastal area, and this is the world's largest delta, 700 kilometers under Bangladesh's coast, Bay of Bengal Delta. And so this Moazzem, in fact, it went like this, and then back, and it disappeared here. So this is a typical one, and you will see in a minute that how many of them went in this path over the last 40 years. This is what the count. The count is since 1960 to 2014. These are the different decades. You have got different frequency. In the 60s, there were 9. Almost one every year. 1970s, 3, 80s, 5, and hitting all Bangladesh coast. And 1990s, 9, 2000s to 2010, 9, hitting Bangladesh, Myanmar, and Andhra Pradesh, which I would come back that region. And in 2013 was Moazzem, Bangladesh. And these, the corresponding sort of, wind speed also was shown there, and the total tidal surge also put on the last column. So at the end, what we have seen that in 2014, last year, there was one which was very devastating, was called Pauline, and Pauline hit the Orissa sort of, coast in India, and that was a very big one. So in total, if you like, since 1960 to 2014, how many of them? 37. 37 of them, say between the category of 3 to 5. So you can see they are really very devastating. So this is another map. We call it the sort of, taking into account, sorry, I went back. I should be next one, yeah. Yeah, so you see, these are the coastal areas in this whole, and do you imagine how many people live there? Guess, in these coastal areas, say from, this is Thailand, Myanmar, Bangladesh, and Indian coast.
Millions.
Huh?
Millions.
How many? Yes, millions. How many?
10?
Huh? How many? I think, yeah, to Rangoon Park. I think between 100 and 150 million. 100 and 150, close, I suppose. So you can see that much of people, they have been sort of, hitting almost every year since 1960. And then let's look at the area where we are going to work. And this is Bangladesh, and this is the region. I think perhaps some of you would know that the World Heritage listed forest area is called Sundarban in Bengali, but beautiful forest, and also the home of the Royal Bengal tiger. Now they call it Bengal tiger, but this was called Royal as well because British was sort of involved that, and that particular forest, every time hits a storm hits, in fact, this is more or less again destroyed, almost half of it. But again growing, and it's happening over thousands and thousands here, but it's still in there. This particular hazard or storm we are going to look at was in fact hit both sides of the Sundarban, that the eastern side and the western side. And eastern side is Bangladesh, and the western side is West Bengal, India. So we choose two villages in both sides. And one is the BD, Bangladesh village, and the other one was the WB, West Bengal village. So with this in mind, as I said, that this is a micro study we would like to see for macro sort of, implications or something like that. So first, let me give you some basic information about those villages. The first one is called, in Bangladesh one was called Shukdara, but we'll call it as a BD village. Shukdara in Bengali, it means that a place of happiness, place of happiness. But you would find whether is there any happiness in that village. And the other one, the Indian one, was called Jharkhali, West Bengal one. Jharkhali means, again, Bengali word. It means storm always. Storm always, kind of thing. This is more real life, you see, unlike the one. So, sorry, the BT village, we are having 84. Oh, the other thing is I should also point out here, this is not a sampling sort of survey under any sampling. It is a kind of census, census of the whole village. So the village had 84 households, and then we have got sort of, surveyed all of them. Why? Because whether they are rich or poor doesn't matter. When it was hit, everyone was the casualty. So in that case, you would find that if you make difference, 84, 74, population was 345, 359. Household size, interesting. BD has got only 4 persons at one household, but in West Bengal it's almost 5. And literacy rate also 52% in Bangladesh, but quite high in India. One, the farmland, area of land, they having almost equal, 62 acres and 67 acres. And landless laborers, that means who hasn't got any land for cultivation, they have got 57% in BD with 48 households out of 84, and only 21.5% in the Indian one with only 16 households. So India, in that respect, having more land ownership. And then some information about the crops they grow and public amenities and infrastructure facility put on the bottom. Now, I'm sure my economist friends, they would, of course others as well, would understand what I'm trying to say with these two pictures or figures. This is we call orange curve. And I use Lorentz curve because we would like to compare those two villages for surveys area, and then see how they stand. So in the left-hand side, sorry, the picture is not that bright. The left-hand side, if you see, the 2011 survey result shows that there is a difference between these two. This is the Lorentz curve, distribution of their consumption, and they are not same, bit of difference. But in 2012 survey, we have seen that this is more or less same. And we will come back to that point with the data. And since we are calling it as work in progress, we have in mind that we are going to do another one this year. So that is going to go in there. But what I'm trying to say here was, you see that Lorentz curve tells us, was there any much distributed difference between those two villages? It looks like it was not. They are sort of, traveling on the same path. And also, the difference between the line of equity and the curve was more or less same. So this is good fit, I suppose, from our point of view, and these are consumption figures, not income. Another thing, what I am trying to do, we have been using consumption data instead of income data, because you see income data always having some problem, because people, they don't want to sort of, tell you the exact income sometimes. But in consumption data, you would get more or less quite close figures. So we had both the villages having consumption data, and we know there are two approaches. When we macro, when we sort of estimate, all nations estimate GDP, time? How many? Finished? 15 minutes?
I give you 3 more minutes.
Oh my God. I gave half an hour yesterday. In any case, I'm finishing, say, give me 5 minutes, okay? Okay, sorry, thank you.
5 minutes. Okay.
Well, I traveled from Australia, mate, you see? Okay, let's carry on. Whatever minutes. So what I was trying to say was that when nations, they estimate GDP, what they do, either they use consumption data, consumption approach, or income approach. So the consumption approach was more sort of, nowadays is more popular. About the methodology on this model, which we are trying to do, we have been, since we are trying to sort of estimate consumption for both these villages, we used this heteroscedasticity regression. And my friend, what's his name, Professor Selman Nathan, took some time to pronounce this particular term, you see. It's really, but what exactly it means that we are going to go for each household, their consumption data, and see how the probability of they being poor or having poverty because of this whole thing, the cyclone. And also, what was the recovery prospects? So 2 things we are doing here, some recovery and some sort of, poverty, expected poverty. So in other words, we are going to go for a number like elasticity, that if a particular household having more than 0.5, then they are vulnerable. And if are less than 5, they are less vulnerable, right? So that's what the model tells us. Now, quickly go to the results. This is important. I think what we are trying to say here, remember, we have got those 2 BD and WB, and 2011 survey, 2012 survey. And there are two groups. One is landowners, landless. Because they have been victim of this particular storm in 2009, we went 2 years later to see how exactly they are coping. So in that case, in 2011 data tells us that non-poor, relatively better off. They are the landowners, they had 6, landless 4%, households, and total 12% only. Vulnerability was 88%. So you can see that it was really hit quite strongly, and even after 2 years, this is what was happening. On the other hand, West Bengal one, that was non-poor quite high, 88, and poor was only 12%, so you can see they recovered quite well in the 2 years' time. 2012, things changed. In 2 years' time, next 2 years, things changed. How? In BD, suddenly we have got 94% of these households become non-poor, and only 6% reversed was the poor, vulnerable. But in here, there were 2% sort of people who dropped to vulnerability in 2012 in that village. Why? Because that was not for the climate change or sort of issues of what we are talking about, but for maybe some cyclical reason, recession or whatever they had. So in short, what we have got, this table tells us in 2011, we have got improvement in 2012. If you like, the improvement was in Bangladesh village, we have 2012 have sort of, there was no poor people, no poverty. In 2012, only 6 households landless, and percent landless. And on India, it was 13%, which were landowners, and only 1% was the landless. So with this in mind, what the recovery, which means that recovery went well in Bangladesh, after 3 years of the cyclone. In West Bengal, it went well just 2 years' time. So now, one can, to some extent, I don't want to generalize, but can conclude that Indian policies went quite well to recover quickly than the Bangladesh's one. But once Bangladesh got the momentum, after 3 years, they are doing better, the households. So you would see that, yes, how to, under this kind of circumstance, how to sort of, make adaptation policies for sustainability. So that's why I put those 3, this is the final slide. The policymakers, both at developing and advanced nations, are looking for micro-level investigation on vulnerability to make adaptation policy for regions hit by climate change, climatic hazards. Sustainable development, how this could be achieved by leaving out millions of coastal population from the equation with constant threat from climatic hazards. And our study focuses both these issues with micro-level investigation, of course, with direct sort of, implications for victims of climatic hazards. Thank you. Okay. Any question?
Thank you very much.
Any question? You have eaten into your total time, but you are kind to me yesterday. I will be kind to you today.
Reciprocal.
Yes, please.
Could you just ask for a couple of clarifications?
Yeah.
How did you work out this threshold value 5? Why 5?
0.5, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
0.5.
Yeah. Yeah, good question.
And then how comes from 2011 to 12, everybody went sort of above the
Good.
peak, or
How it happened,
you
yeah.
explain that, but then also, where did you get the consumption values from? Is it reported values or from
No,
accounts?
it's a primary survey.
Sorry?
Primary survey
So these reported values
from the household. From,
But, yes, okay, so.
yeah. So let me go with your first question.
Yeah.
The value of this 0.5, I mean, it was not our making. We had to go to the literature that those people having vulnerability estimates. Vulnerability was a huge area for medical science, for your transport and all sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Then what we find, one study which was done in Indonesia by the Columbia University, New York, and they did it for the non-environmental sort of, sort of elements or the variables. But we use their figure, but we have our own exercise, and then with the environmental data put it in, then we thought that 0.5 should be the result. The second one was about your data, 12. Well, I suppose what we did when we collected data suddenly we went in a village, that particular village, and we went for 1 week of their consumption data. 1 week consumption data. At the same time, we went to Indian village. What happened that week in that particular village? And we got all of them, and you see this orange curve, and surprisingly, we are also surprised to have those two villages in the middle, that huge forest, and they are having almost similar kind of, trend. Of course, two countries having two different level of prices, we have factorized them, but that is what it happened. So I think why they're similar, because they were victim of one incident. That incident is 2009 cyclone, both villages. Okay, thank you.
Adams. Yes.
Yes.
You mentioned in your second point of conclusion that sustainable development can be achieved by taking these people under the hazard of climatic change to other places. So those people, they used to call them environmental refugees. So how going to take them from these areas to achieve sustainable development? They can stay in the same places, but you can argue for them.
Yeah, you are talking about migrating or moving them, shifting them, isn't it?
Okay.
But the thing is that, as I said, this region was hit by cyclone thousands of years. There is no option to go out. We asked that question to them, said no. And the second thing is, why they wouldn't like to go out, because they thought that this is their land, whatever. Every 2 years they are hitting by one, fair enough. That so-called resilience or coping, that's what really working in these particular areas. That was the reason why, perhaps this is the question one can also ask, that why these sort of, coastal areas. We need coastal areas to address first at United Nations level. So these are the people victim, and not only with this sort of storm, also sea level rise. And you see all advanced countries, even, they have been sort of, if you travel to these coastal area city councils, you see councils, everyone are very panicked now that what is going to happen. On the other day, I was reading when I was coming that over the last 1,000 or 10,000 years, the UK, the East Coast, UK East Coast, in fact, went inside by 10 kilometers, 8 to 10 kilometers. Of course, long time. But you see the frequency, if you go to our frequency table of cyclone, over the last 15 years, we had 15 out of 37. 15. So frequency has gone up, and it's going to go up more and more. And these poor people has nothing to do with contributing to CO2. So that's perhaps what we are trying to do, that convince at relevant level that, well, yes, you are doing good thing, nice, but please give some priority, sort of, to the coastal people, And it's not this area. If you go to Chinese coast, if you go to the Egyptian coast, this Nile Delta, and I have got all those information. And also, if you go to South Africa and all those coasts, New Zealand is a major problem.
Okay, I think it was the answer for your question. Echo. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Bye.